It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. And you can also email us at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. I have some upsetting news for anybody that lives in the Los Angeles area. Your quality of life sucks, according to a new study from UCLA. For more on this, let's go to ABC 7.
According to the Quality of Life Index report, the increasing cost of housing is the main cause of that plummeting satisfaction among LA County residents.
And now it is news reporter Josh Haskell.
It's just so expensive to live here that life is crappy.
And now it is news reporter Josh Haskell has all the details.
The high price of housing in LA County has impacted the quality of life, according to a new survey conducted by the UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs of roughly 1,700 residents.
Burbank is becoming, it's already unaffordable. You know, a house that's 900 square feet is probably $1 million now.
Million? Try 1.2, maybe 1.3. And that's for a Burbank house, which usually has one bathroom. All the electrical outlets are from the 1920s, but still, that is some valuable real estate in a beautiful city in the valley.
Burbank is becoming, it's already unaffordable. You know, a house that's 900 square feet is probably $1 million now. People with normal wages can't afford living.
It's tough. I mean, you think about it, it's like me and my fiance have a great job. Get paid pretty well, but everything costs a lot, including housing.
26%.
That is true. It's very expensive to live here. I have a pretty decent job. My wife has a pretty decent job. There was no way we could buy the house we're in without help from the in-laws because, yes, it is very expensive to live here. And the beautiful thing is, if you're lucky enough to finally get into a house, well, then at least you know that your payment is set for quite some time. If you're renting and your lease changes every year and you've got to move, your rent has probably gone up 25% in the last 5 years. That is stifling.
26% of people surveyed said they worry about becoming homeless.
Okay, I don't know about that. I think there's a big difference between you're priced out of your neighborhood, you're priced out of the city you want to live in, and you're going to become homeless.
26% of people surveyed said they worry about becoming homeless.
No, I don't think so. If Los Angeles is too expensive to live, you'll have to do what a lot of people do, which is move to somewhere that's cheaper and have the worst commute of all time. It doesn't sound optimal, but people do it every single day. There are plenty of people living in the San Bernardino County, living in Riverside County, living in the Antelope Valley that found some place that is more affordable. They've got one hell of a commute, but they're able to make it work. I don't think those people thought, oh, I'm going to become homeless. Little different.
26% of people surveyed said they worry about becoming homeless.
26% of people surveyed are melodramatic.
And 37% of those are renters.
People are not satisfied with their quality of life in most cases, driven by the cost of living and particularly the cost of housing.
It's funny. That's Zev Yaroslavsky, the former L.A. County supervisor whose daughter-in-law took his last name so she could run for city council and destroy Council District 5 even worse than Paul Koretz did. All the efforts from local government over the years, has that helped lower the cost of housing or has it skyrocketed?
This is the lowest rating we've ever had in the 9 years we've been doing the survey. It's getting harder and harder to make ends meet in LA. It's harder to pay for housing. There's some quality of life issues that we're all familiar with that continue to plague us. And inflation is taking a bite out of everybody's paycheck.
65% say increases in the cost of food and groceries have had a major impact on their quality of life, and 56% said rising housing costs also impact their quality of life.
Well, yes, if you've got less free money to enjoy yourself with, and you're only getting by with rent and food, well, I hope you enjoy cooking, because that's the only fun you're going to have. Good luck wanting to go to a concert. Good luck wanting to go even the beach. Things be expensive.
75% of renters do not believe they will ever be able to own a home, ever. Think about that. That wasn't my dad's and mom's generation. That wasn't.
People be priced out. Yet there's still plenty of people who are able to buy the houses for as expensive as they are. I don't know where they're coming from. You have a lot of people who do very well in other states that decide they could buy a house here. But for as unaffordable as homes are in Southern California, they get snatched up real quick.
Generation. That wasn't even my generation. I always believed that if I worked hard, I'd be able to eventually own a home.
But it's not all bad news. High ratings on the Quality of Life Index went to relations between people of different races, ethnicities, and religions.
That's interesting.
And to how people feel about their health care. The highest rated item, how residents feel.
That's right. My rent is terrible. My food prices have gone through the roof, but I really like my Blue Shield plan, so I'm a happy person. This is a weird study.
The highest rated item, how residents feel about their own neighborhood. That is, as long as they can continue to afford to live there.
So there you have it. It's incredibly expensive and it's making people miserable. And this is not just an LA County thing. This is happening all over the place. Orange County is also very, very, very expensive. And the cost of housing is very, very unaffordable for all different parts of Orange County. Well, there is one city in Orange County that thinks they identified one of the contributing factors to why housing is so expensive. And I think they have figured out a solution. Will it be successful? I don't know. You tell me. But the city of Santa Ana, they have decided, in an effort to help lower the cost of housing, put more housing stock out there so rents can go down, so mortgages can go down, is to ban Airbnb, to ban VRBO, to ban short-term rentals. Is that the solution to lowering the cost of housing? I don't know. We're going to find out with this report from KTLA.
Santa Ana City Council has voted to ban short-term rentals within city limits. Council members say the move is meant to preserve the character of neighborhoods and...
Well, no, it's not for that. Well, you got to remember, there are two contributing factors to why so many cities want to ban Airbnbs. And one of them is the jackasses that throw parties. Now, that's the kind of thing you'll see in Malibu. You'll see in the Hollywood Hills. I don't know if that's what the short-term rental market in Santa Ana is. I would imagine the vast majority of short-term rentals in Santa Ana are people with families that are going to go spend a week at Disneyland and don't want to pay for 3 or 4 rooms, because that can get very, very, very expensive.
And open up much-needed housing supply. KTLA's Carlos Herrera live in Santa Ana now with details for us. Carlos, good morning.
Hi, Jessica. Good morning. And the council yesterday unanimously voted for this urgency ordinance. That means that this ban goes into effect immediately. They say
it's such an emergency, we got to ban it right now. What happens if you're in the middle of a stay? Do you got to get kicked out?
Hi, Jessica. Good morning. And the council yesterday unanimously voted for this urgency ordinance. That means that this ban goes into effect immediately. They say that the city desperately needed a move like this to reduce housing prices in the area, but the decision is sparking debate among local renters and homeowners.
I'm going to see an immediate effect. Rent prices are going to go down immediately because there could be no more Airbnb rentals. So if you have a property that you've been rented out on them Airbnbs, on them VRBOs, you got to now rent that to somebody long term. You got to have someone sign a lease. And if enough people do that, it's all going to come down, right?
I mean, I'm all for making profit, but I think in this economy, we're having a housing crisis. Rent is really at its all-time high right now. So I think that conversation needs to be addressed.
Should I start feeling guilty because we have a spare bedroom here? It's used as a guest room when family comes to stay. But for the most part, that bedroom stays empty. Should I be turning that into a rental unit? I don't want to deal with that headache. I have even contemplated, I could put a separate entrance, put a, extra door on there. If I wanted to, because they're giving all the grants for it, I could take my garage. I got a beautiful detached garage. I could turn that into some extra housing. My neighbors would hate my guts, not just for all the construction, but for putting more cars in this neighborhood, the added sewage, everything else. I don't think my neighbors would take too kindly to me putting an ADU or turning my place into a duplex. But I don't know. We've got such a housing shortage. Should I be feeling guilty that I've got a spare room? Should I be renting that out? I don't want to, though. I really don't.
Others think the ban.
Although, could work out a deal where if I rented out that room, I'd say I'll knock a couple bucks off the rent, but you have to take my cat. I'd be okay with that.
Others think the ban is just too rigorous. The city says the move is to preserve the character of neighborhoods and open up much-needed house supplies. Officials and many residents blame a recent spike in short-term rentals from sites like Airbnb and Verbo for issues such as litter, excessive noise, parking, and many more. They say right now there are more than 1,100 active short-term rental units across Santa Ana, which actually makes up 35% of the city's new housing needs. Residents yesterday sounding off during hours of public comment.
So it would take, 1,100 units that could be rented out or not being rented out? I guess that can make an impact. I'm torn on this because I understand we're in that housing crunch, but also I have used Airbnb in the past. I have used VRBO. I have been a short-term renter. I just booked a place for a couple of days in the Caribbean. I'm doing a hotel for a couple nights, but on a beachfront area, I found a rental property that I'm booking for 4 nights. Very excited about it. But I guess if you are the local municipality, you can be a little upset because if you live in one of these vacation areas, I think they're talking about doing one of these bans in South Lake Tahoe because so many people that own the homes in South Lake Tahoe don't live there. They don't do it. They occasionally stay there, but they rent it all out.
It's very important that we stand up for housing. We're in a housing crisis. And as you heard, one of the issues is supply and demand. Short-term rentals take housing off of the long-term market and reduce the supply of long-term housing.
I strongly believe that we provide a valuable service to the community by offering lodging options for families that visit Southern California, thereby boosting tourism and revenue for the city and the surrounding areas.
And that's a legitimate argument because if you have the short-term rentals, you're bringing in the tourists. The people that would be staying in Anaheim are now staying in Santa Ana because they want to live in a single-family house while they go spend all their money at Disneyland. And yeah, they'll probably frequent a restaurant or two that's around the house because they were broke from buying those $15 hot dogs at Disneyland. I'm assuming that's what they cost now. I haven't been there in about 5 years.
Under the ordinance, it is prohibited to offer, rent, or maintain any short-term rental for less than 30 days. Violators could face penalties, including a fine of up to $5,000, up to 6 months in jail, or both. It is still unclear.
Okay, nobody is going to jail for violating this ordinance. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Good luck enforcing it because we're not enforcing actual crime, let alone people violating the Airbnb ordinance. But don't you worry, you might get a fine if somebody narcs on you. But I don't think you're going to jail because you rented out a place for 2 weeks instead of 4 weeks.
How the city will enforce it. Santa Ana's ban comes after the city of Irvine banned short-term rentals in residential zones in 2018. A study in real estate economics revealed that long-term rents in the city dropped by 3%, a decrease of $114 a month on average. This morning, we have reached out to Verbo and Airbnb for comment. We've yet to hear back. The city wants you to know that if you suspect that there is any short-term residential rental in your area, you should report it to the authorities. We'll send it back to you.
Narc on your neighbors if they're renting out an Airbnb. And boy, Airbnb has been a fascinating story to watch because this originally started as, you can rent out a room and people can come stay with you. And quickly, we all realized nobody wants to do that. And the first thing I do when I go on Airbnb is I filter out, I'm not staying in anybody's extra room. I'm not staying anywhere where the person who lives on the property is there. I can't do that. That's awkward. I don't want to do that. I want to rent out a place to myself. That would mean I'm on vacation. I don't want the superhost. I don't care what the superhost thinks about local flavor, local flair. I want to be with just my own people. If I'm just traveling with my wife or with my wife and some friends, that's all I want there. I don't want those people there. So Airbnb is very different from what it originally was intended to be. But I'm wondering if you believe this is going to help. Has Airbnb, has VRBO, the short-term rental market, has that taken so many units of housing off the long-term market that's why rents are going so high? I don't know. Sure, we have the study from Irvine, although I would say anecdotally, based on the people that I know that live in Irvine, rents are still through the roof up there. But you look at cities like Santa Monica, they've been banning short-term rentals since 2015. Still pretty darn expensive to rent in Santa Monica. So this is what Santa Ana is doing. This is their answer to the housing crisis. My question to you at 800-222-KABC is this: 1-800-222-5222. Do you think banning short-term rentals will actually lower the cost of housing? 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. Do you think banning short-term rentals in Santa Ana is actually going to make the rent cheaper? 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. Should people be allowed to rent out their place for as long as they want because it's their place? Or is it such a strain on the housing market that we got to stop this now? Plus, there's that whole aspect with the people throwing crazy parties. 800-222-KABC. How do you feel about Santa Ana banning Airbnb? It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're taking your phone calls. 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. The city of Santa Ana in Orange County is banning short-term rentals, banning Airbnbs, banning VRBOs immediately because they think that this will be the answer to solving the housing crisis. This will lower rents. It will put 1,000 units of housing back on the long-term market. Do you think banning short-term rentals will solve the housing crisis? 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. Let's start in Orange County. Janet in Mission Viejo. Janet, hello.
Yes. Hi, Randy. This is what I think. I think it's not going to help the housing crisis because short-term rentals ruin a neighborhood. No one wants to live in a neighborhood where people are coming and going next door. So the neighborhoods will appreciate in value without the short-term rentals. Therefore, the price of housing will go up, but the neighborhoods will get better.
Oh, I love that aspect of it. As a homeowner, that's what I'm all about.
Yeah. Yeah, no one wants that next door. You don't want people coming and going middle of the night. Who's there today is not who's there tomorrow, especially when you have families. So that's kind of it in a nutshell for me.
Well, that's a great way to think about it, Janet. Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. Very interesting. It won't solve the housing crisis because values will go up because there's no more blight from the jackasses who are throwing parties. See, that's the kind of outside-the-box thinking that this audience provides every single day. And that's what we do. We take the calls here, 5 to 6. Love talking to this audience. Do you think banning Airbnbs will solve the housing crisis? 800-222-KABC. Let's go to John in Santa Monica. John, hello.
Randy, as always, you are very topical and incisive, and you have an exciting show.
Why, thank you.
Off with a compliment. Okay, now I'm in Santa Monica, and I'm trying to figure: is this is this possibly a lobby thing with hotels that don't want to lose hotel stayers because people get a cheaper deal in a house, you know what I mean, or a private arrangement? And we have 75,000 homeless people, and they're fine with that in this town. I mean, you know, I'm in Santa Monica. People are sleeping in every alleyway and thing. We got mobile homes parked everywhere in Venice and in Culver City. It's like, you know, really? It seems to me like there's a angle here that has to do with lobbying in terms of. I'm asking for your guidance here on that. And what is short?
Well, if you think about specifically, John, think about specifically Santa Ana, where it's located in Orange County, what city it's right next to, what mega destination is right next to Santa Ana that has a whole bunch of hotels, that has a whole bunch of political influence, that would not like the competition of short-term rentals in the neighboring town when people want to go visit Disneyland.
Bingo. Okay, you just answered it. Now, I have a topic, a subject to throw at you. You can put on your radar list. I am suggesting that all Republicans register for We the People and get Bobby Kennedy on the ballot. So this would be a political show. And the idea being is that Bobby Kennedy will not attract any MAGA people of anything. Being a MAGA person in California is a waste of time anyway. And you can vote whoever you want to in November. But I think putting Bobby Kennedy on the ballot in California, We the People, and you just change your registration, will be a fantastic, like Ralph Nader. What was his name? What was the guy? He had he get under the hood. What was his name? Ross Perot, to mix up the Democrat Party. And I think
you think it'd be a spoiler candidate? Well, it's definitely an interesting proposition. John, if you want to expand on that, we're doing totally open phones tomorrow. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. The city of Santa Ana is banning short-term rentals. They say they need to do this because it will lower the cost of housing. Do you think banning Airbnb will solve the housing crisis? 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls. You're an active participant in this show, so give us a call right now. 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. The city of Santa Ana has banned Airbnbs, VRBOs, and short-term rentals. They say this will lower rents, this will increase the housing supply, this will solve the housing crisis. My question to you at 800-222-KABC is this: do you think banning Airbnbs will solve the housing crisis? Let's go to Greg in Orange. Greg, hello.
Hello.
Hey. Greg.
Hello?
Hey, you're on the air.
I'm here. Oh, how about that? Okay. So it won't solve the housing crisis by itself, maybe in the margins a little bit, but it'll do one thing that's good, and that will be it'll stop destroying neighborhoods. For example, I'm from Brooklyn originally. My neighborhood in Brooklyn had people who grew up in the same house their parents bought and their grandparents bought. When you get Airbnb, you get investors who want to buy those houses and rent them out, and the people say, oh, yeah, I'm cool, I'm getting the New York experience. But they're not. They don't know the neighbors. They don't know the neighborhood. They don't care about it. So I'm for the law. I don't think it's going to make a difference in housing, but I think it's going to be good for neighborhoods.
You think that it's going to make neighborhoods a little more authentic, a little more legitimate, because you don't have, like you said, these institutional investors that are trying to take a single-family home and turn it into a profit machine.
Right. It'll keep neighborhoods for people who are actually neighbors, not people who show up for a week or two at a time.
I think you make a great point. Greg, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Santa Ana is banning short-term rentals to solve the housing crisis. Do you think banning Airbnbs will solve the housing crisis? 800-222-KABC. Let's go to Bill in La Cañada. Bill, hello.
Hey, Randy, I'm not crazy about disrupting the neighborhood with those Airbnbs, but there are at least two other problems. This is really a backdoor attempt at rent control by the city of Santa Ana. And if you look at lots of cities that have tried rent control, like Santa Monica, Berkeley, it stifles construction, and the rent actually eventually skyrockets, and because people don't want to build new housing. It has the opposite effect. And the other thing is, you probably remember, I think it was about 3 years ago, some nitwit on a local, I think it was the LA City Council, suggested that anybody who had spare bedrooms, such as yourself and myself, should be compelled to rent those out, possibly to homeless people. Do you recall that?
Oh, that was Mike Bonin on the West Side, and he proposed an idea called a vacancy tax, where if you had spare bedrooms, you would have to pay a tax unless you wanted to rent those out.
Right. And that's what I'm talking. That it's a form of rent control, and there's nothing to stop Santa Ana if they're going to do stuff, or other cities if they can do stuff like that with people's private property. Which I know the term private property is almost non-existent now in California. But if cities can do that, what's to stop them from doing this tax on vacant bedrooms?
Oh, well, I'm guarantee if we get enough DSA members on the LA City Council, they will put that proposal forward. They're already talking about doing one for hotels as well, where if a hotel has any vacancy, they got to rent them out to the homeless for free.
Right. So this is just a slippery slope.
Well, there we go. It only took 41 minutes for someone to say the magic words. Bill, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Do you think the city of Santa Ana banning Airbnbs will solve the housing crisis? Let's go to Kathy in Burbank. Kathy, hello.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
Guess what? I'm no longer in Burbank. I'm driving to the desert, to Palm Springs. I just flew in from Oregon. And when I was in Oregon this week, I've been getting some trainings to become Airbnb flipper, short-term without owning. And some of the statistics are gonna shock you. There's over 4 million people looking for Airbnbs in the United States, and there's only 125,000 units.
No wonder that site's so expensive.
You will not solve any kind of housing problem by shutting down or taxing. It's a bunch of BS. I used to live, and this is my native state, and I love California so much. I'm back here for some sunshine because I can't stand the Oregon winters. But the politics here and the money and the people, you know what I call them? I call them left brain thinkers. In other words, they have no right brain. They have no more common sense left. You can borrow it. I call them left brainers.
There you go.
Left brainers.
Well, Kathy, while you're back in California, we're glad to have you. Remember, when you're up in Oregon, you can always listen to us on the stream at KABC.com or get that KABC app.
Well, I will do that. I just put it on my phone. But I love to come here. This is the state. I mean, come on. I grew up here in the 50s. I'm 74 years old. I want to go to the beach and body surf, but not in Venice or Santa Monica where there's all those homeless people.
No, go north to Santa Barbara or south to Orange County, but don't go to that part. Or the South Bay is good. Redondo, Hermosa, but yeah, Santa Monica and Venice has gotten a little sketchy.
Hey, listen, I'm a surfer girl from the 60s. I did surf contests up and down you don't need to tell me where to go. I used to live in Santa Barbara. It's all lovely, but I'm actually thinking of about 100 miles north of Cabo del Sur in Mexico because it's lovely.
Oh, wow.
There's nobody
there you go. Kathy, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. Do you think the city of Santa Ana banning Airbnbs and short-term rentals will solve the housing crisis? Let's go to Mike in L.A. Mike, hello.
Hey, it's the city or state wants a piece of the action, and they can't get a piece of the action, so they have to shut it down because people become a little bit more well-off because they make some money off of their property. It's like...
Well, you know what's interesting, Mike, is...
to have any independent workers either.
No, they got rid of that. And it's interesting. Some cities, they went a different route than just straight up banning the apps. They'd say you need to apply for permits and pay licensing fees. And so they soft ban it by making it too expensive to operate. Santa Ana is just straight up saying, no, you cannot rent your house for less than 30 days.
Right. And why they talk about the asshole that takes advantage of it. Take care of them.
You get that way, man?
Why kill the whole program?
Yeah. Thanks so much for the call, Mike. Appreciate it. Now, I just want to say, I appreciate the passion of this audience. I appreciate how, interesting you are and how riled up you can get and how you feel free to really speak your mind on this radio station. We encourage it. This is the radio station that takes your phone calls, and we're happy to do it. I like to say that we're the sounding board to Southern California. But you have to remember, and when you call us at 800-222-KABC, there are certain words and phrases you cannot say on the air. Luckily, we have a dump button, so all the audience's virgin ears didn't get to hear that. But just as a reminder, there are a lot of things that you can say. There are a few things you cannot say, and try to be mindful of that. Do you think banning Airbnb will solve the housing crisis in California? That's what Santa Ana's doing. 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. If you'd like to email us, you can do so at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. Nick writes in and says, you know what? Whenever I'm looking for an Airbnb, I always think Santa Ana. The city of Santa Ana is banning short-term rentals, Airbnbs, VRBOs, because they believe it will solve the housing crisis. Do you think banning short-term rentals will solve the housing crisis? 800-222-KABC. Let's go to Lucio in La Puente. Lucio, hello.
Hello. Yes, I don't think it will solve anything by doing that, and I'm really tired of the government telling us what I can do with my property. So I think it's just somebody's just agenda to try to, I guess, the hotels, so they'll get more business or something. But I don't think it's a good idea, and I don't think it will do anything to solve the housing market at all.
Lucio, you're the second person to bring up that point that this might not be as organic of a measure as we think, because if you're getting pressure, whether it's from lobbying or donations from big hotels, like, I don't know, some of the massive hotels in the neighboring city of Anaheim who don't want the competition of single-family homes getting rented out to people who want to go to Disneyland, there's definitely an angle there.
Yeah, I truly believe so. That's the case, and I don't think it's right. And I don't, like I say, it won't do anything for the housing market. I don't think it'll solve anything at all.
Don't think it's going to move the needle. Thanks so much for the call, Lucio. Appreciate it. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. Let's go to Lee in La Puente. Lee, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great.
Well, I have a suggestion. There's many malls that have closed down in Southern California. Why don't they reconvert them to mental hospitals or condominiums or apartments? And then we also have, I think, over 23 vacant military bases that could also be used for housing as well, especially for housing the homeless. I don't understand how these politicians in California can't think of the vacant military bases that are out there.
Well, especially because that's publicly owned land, so that should be an easy slam dunk, but you never hear creative solutions like that. And when I think about the malls, I live out in the San Fernando Valley, and for years and years and years, there was the Topanga Plaza and the Promenade. The Promenade closed, I think, 6-7 years ago, and that whole area has just been sitting empty and vacant for that many years. I don't know what they're going to do with it at some point. You've got homeless that are piling up all over.
Hospitals. They could. We have a problem with nowhere to make mental hospitals. Why not make them a mental hospital? We need a fix.
Well, and speaking of hospitals, there is a hospital that is completely empty that got bought by the owner of the LA Times, and instead of converting it to a mental hospital, instead of doing something about it that would help the city, the owner of the LA Times is just sitting on this vacant property that could be used today to help people.
Well, they should take it from them, since they want to take us, poor people's property, and tell us what to do. They should just do an eminent domain and take it from them. See
I
how
love
he
that
likes it.
idea. They use eminent domain against the regular middle class folks, against the poor people all the time. They use eminent domain to kick everyone out of Chavez Ravine. I think you're right. We should use eminent domain to confiscate the hospital that Patrick Soon-Shiong owns, the owner of the LA Times, because he's not going to use it to help people, so we shall. I love that idea. Leah, thank you so much for calling in.
The other building that has all that graffiti on it, why don't they make that a homeless shelter? Just finish it up and make that a place for the homeless.
Well, the thing about that one, Leah, is that it would be way too close to, I guess they don't call it Staples Center anymore, but I don't know if they want a shelter right next to that big old Kobe statue. But hey, I love the creative ideas, the creative solutions. Thank you so much for your calls, for your emails, for listening to this show. I'm here every single day, 5 to 6, and I'm also on every single day, noon to 3 with John Phillips. So I'll be back for that show, noon to 3, and then coming in for a happy hour Open Phones Friday tomorrow at 5 o'clock right here on the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC.